Okay, so Carol's just looking at her notes. No, you don't have to be quiet.
Today is November 27th, 2009, and we're at Arlene Hubbard's home in Danville, Vermont. And Tim and Carol Shay are here, Mike and Gloria Tillitson and Mary Pryor, and of course Arlene Hubbard, our mother.
Now, where were you born, Mother?
I was born in Kirby, Vermont, September 20th, 1911.
Your parents' name?
At home, I hear, or heard, I was a big baby,
How much?
12 pounds.
Oh my gosh, Arlene.
I don't know how my other mother ever survived it because she wasn't a big person. And I understood the doctor was there. And
Were you the first baby?
no, I was second. But I was the girl. And for some reason I had dark hair, a dark complexion. And my brother was very light and fair, and so was the other rest of the family. So they didn't ever understand why I was dark and had dark hair. But that's the way it is.
How long did you live in Kirby? How long did your parents stay there?
I think until I was 4 or 5.
And then where did
Then
you
we moved to, that was at a little farm in North Kirby. And then we moved to St. Johnsbury, and that's where I started school at Portland Street School. My dad had rented a barn that's in back of the, what used to be Ames building there.
on Portland Street?
On Portland Street, and we lived on Ely Street in a nice house. We had running water, we had a bathroom, we had a nice place. And while we were living there, everybody had the flu. They set up beds in one room, and the neighbors and so forth, when they had it, everybody helped each other out.
That would have been the Spanish influenza, wouldn't it?
That was in 1918 or so.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it killed many, many people in the United States.
And it's the only time I
worldwide.
ever saw my father sick. But he was sick along with all the rest of us. And
you can remember it even though you were of the young age.
I remember that little bit, yes, I do. It was while we were there that I had the whooping cough and chicken pox together.
Oh, Lord.
Over it was around Christmas time, I think, or something. I don't remember, but it seems like it must have been warmer weather, so I guess it was earlier in the fall. But I walked to school, I'm sure, because it wasn't far, with Glenn, my older brother. And
was it then that your mom became friends with Ruth Drown's mom, do you think?
yes,
You were neighbors?
they lived upstairs and we lived down.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Her name was McCosco at the time.
right.
And was her husband alive when
No.
he had died?
Well, I don't remember him, so I think
Yeah.
he had died, but Ruth could tell whether or not they lived there. I just remember Ruth and her mother. I don't remember seeing him. The building of the house had been torn down where we lived, and it was too bad because it had hardwood floors and beautiful windows, and for the times it was a beautiful place. Anyway, then on November 20th, 1920, we moved to North Danville.
Which is what we knew in the 50s and 60s as the Eastman place.
Yes.
But you were the Aileses.
right? Yeah. And
What did you know it as? A certain place name when you moved there?
I think there was somebody lived there that didn't, either they had a large family or something, I think, because I've heard Arthur Sandman tell. It probably is on the book somewhere. And of course, when we moved there, we had no running water, no electricity, no telephone. And we moved in November, so
No bathroom,
no, well,
outdoor, an outhouse, but not an indoor plumbing that you left from
No.
St. Jay.
so that was quite a change.
Did your dad want a farm?
Yes.
That's
it was
why
a
you
small
moved?
farm. It was a barn there at that time. And they had a pair of horses to do some of the work. That was before tractors, at least for us. And Glenn loved horses, so he would take care of the horses, and even though he wasn't that old, he loved horses. So that I can remember going into the barn, but we had to go up some stairs, it seems to me, to get to the stable. And then we had a high drive where you put the hay on the other side, and I think the horse part was downstairs, but I'm not sure. And I don't know, I think they must have carried the water to a watering trough out in the vineyard.
Do you think we're causing Carol stress because she has these questions she's worked on and we're not causing you stress?
No, not at all. Actually, a lot of what I got on here, she's answering as she goes
And
along.
then you'll pick up
So I'm
and,
trying to figure out what I don't need to say anything about. That's
Okay.
all, if I get to the.
Well, now what do you want to know?
How long did you stay there?
Graham,
How long did you?
Graham, was that Lafayette Street you were on
No,
in St. Jay? No?
no.
Because you said it was behind
Ely Street
Ames.
is on the other side toward the river.
What is?
It's on the other
Ely
side of
Street,
Butler
yeah.
Street.
Oh, Eli's, oh yeah, it was down by the
Yep.
dog's junkyard, right? I think it
Right.
was down
Yes,
there.
yes. It's a part of that, I think,
But I
now.
thought you said the barn was behind Ames.
No, the,
she's in North Danville now.
that's in
No, I
North
know.
Danville.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah.
okay.
I'm
Fine.
sorry.
You-
That's okay.
Good thing you brought it up. Probably would have sounded strange on that, too.
Yeah, because I was thinking this. Okay.
When we moved to St. Johnsbury, then the barn was up there. See? And the house was
So
down
there weren't a
on
barn in
King
St.
Street.
Johnsbury?
Yes.
There
The
was?
barn is still there.
At the end of Lafayette Street?
It's in back of what used to be,
Yeah. Ames.
yes, but it's not, well, it may be on Lafayette Street.
I think so. I think
At
it's
the
like
end of Lafayette Street, I
Right.
guess.
Is it out where Bridges used to live?
Uh-huh.
Okay. I think it's
You
Lafayette
know where it
Street.
is,
I
right?
think it's Lafayette Street.
You'll have to go on a ride.
Yeah, we
But
pretty
Eli
sure.
Street's down the other way.
And of
Right,
course,
and
there
there's
are
a
a lot
lot.
of houses on that land now. I expect there were fields up in back of the barn.
Yeah, probably up towards Breezy Hill now.
Yes,
Up
right.
that way, yeah.
They wouldn't have a lot of fields like we have fields
Oh,
today.
no.
Well, of course, they did it with horses, they didn't have to. They wouldn't-
Right, and they probably
be
didn't
flat.
have, if they had what, 5 head of
Any
cattle,
questions?
that probably was a
Any
lot.
I don't know how many he had. He probably had more
How many
than that.
brothers and sisters did you have?
Well, let's see, I had an older brother, Glenn. Then there was me, Arlene, and then Kenneth, and later on Homer.
What are the dates
Ailes.
of all you Ailes children's births? Can you remember your birth dates?
Glenn was born June. I was trying to think. I think it probably was in 9.
That's what I got on.
100 years ago. Oh, amazing.
And Kenneth was born in 13 or 14, somewhere there. And then Homer was born in North Danville in 27. April 27.
Oh, he was born during the flood.
And your birth date is?
Mine is September 20th, 1911. Now, Carol,
Have you
these
got
are...
any, have you got any particular memories of any of these brothers that stand out to you? Any people's stories?
I don't seem to remember too much about Glenn. He was never in trouble like Kenneth and I.
I don't know why.
For some reason, I don't remember too much. I think maybe because he was in the barn or tending the horses or something like that. And he must have walked to school. The three of us had to walk to school. Because when we moved up there,
To North Danville?
when we moved up to North Danville, Kenneth was just 6, so he was starting school. And so that he was the one who liked to sing. And he would go down to the blacksmith shop and sing to the men there at noon, and they'd give him a nickel for singing.
And the
He had a
blacksmith
nice-
shop was across from the school.
Yes.
And whose blacksmith shop do you know that as? John Gatapee?
Well, I think it was. I think
Across
so.
from the school where and
The
what?
old school in North Danville.
Where the Phillips Academy was.
No, we're talking about...
Phillips was out here. The blacksmith shop, the old school is where Cliff's cows are at the end of the...
That's what I said.
Right.
And the blacksmith shop would be about where the town shed is, right, Arlene?
I think it was in back of that sort of,
Okay.
right there, between the town shed and the
Fire station.
fire station.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
And
right
what
in
we
there.
have to remember was there was water that had been coursed through behind the new school and the church. Came down. Was this?
No, I think where we got water for school was a spring down there. It had nothing to do with that, what they call that? That went back to there.
It was like a canal. It was like an
Yes.
aqueduct.
That's what they called it.
They called
was
it an aqueduct. And you don't know whether it came out of the river or out of the spring up there in the corner of Cliff's pasture.
No, I really don't know because it wasn't in use when I got there, when I moved there, but it had been before. But of course it could have come from the river
It could have.
because that river came around there.
In 1878 on the Beers Atlas, it shows it as a waterway. So, they had, remember that, Carol? That?
No, I don't.
Do you remember the horse sheds by the church?
No.
And
I
between Dad's field that came down.
I knew
And
that they were there at one time, but I don't,
yeah, but there was kind of a ditch there when we were growing up, and there was an old rotten car down in there and stuff like that.
The shed, of course, went around between the horse sheds, went between the school and the church, back, and then in back of the church to make a V.
Yeah.
And make a L.
Yeah,
And in back of that one was where this ditch was.
yeah, right around behind
Right.
it.
And somebody had dumped a car in there long.
I remember that. Do you
Yeah,
remember
yeah, I
that?
remember seeing the car.
Yeah, I haven't seemed to be having this trouble last night too. Nothing but, thank you.
So Kenneth and you, what was the age difference?
About 3 years apart, 2.5, 3 years apart.
So you were older than he was,
I'm older than Kenneth.
and you two got in trouble?
Well, let me see. The one time I remember was we decided we were going to try the oh gosh, what do you call those? Mowing machine. You know when they had those.
Cutter bars on.
Yeah. Well, he said, well, you move it out in and I'll hold him. He was going to hold something down there to cut it off. Instead, he got the end of his finger. Well, of course, it bled like the dickens. So we went to the house, and Glenn was there then by the time we got to the house. And he saw the blood, boom. He fainted away. So Mom had to give him something, or water or something, to revive him, and then she tended to the finger. And, well, of course they said we shouldn't have been doing it in the first place. Well, we did anyway.
Did he always have a scar on that finger from that? Do you remember?
I don't think it was very bad. I
Yeah.
think it just was enough to cause it to bleed.
Caused his brother to faint.
But he always did when he saw blood. He had to give blood when Gloria was born for me.
Really?
Same thing happened. And Homer stood there and laughed.
That's normal for Homer. I remember them playing at the North Danville school dances, and Kenneth was late. And Homer, they wanted him to play a little longer because they were late getting started. And Kenneth looked at Homer and he said, "Well, you were late. Get in here. We should play later." Homer wanted to, so Kenneth was the one that was late, so Homer was all upset to think that.
Kenneth had forgotten about it, and he didn't come and he didn't come. So somebody called him when he did get there. Then this happened after that. Oh, there were other things too. My mother used to say that if Kenneth asked me to jump off a bridge, I'd do it. But he had the knack of, you ask
He was
her.
charming, huh?
Yeah, he was.
And what about the time that you were mopping the floor or something, and Kenneth came in with the vegetables?
Well, I was probably a teenager then, and he was supposed to get vegetables from the garden. So he went out and he got carrots and so forth, and he had them by the top. Well, I had mopped part of the kitchen floor. It's hardwood floor, you know, they're very easy to do. And here he came in with by the tops, holding them like that, doing it just purpose, you know, to get me mad. And he brought them in and he had to go all the way across the kitchen floor to the sink. Well, I was mad because the dirt was falling on my clean floor. So I took the mop and I thought, well, I'm going to get you. Probably told him that too. But what happened? I tipped over my pail of water. So he went out laughing.
He got you there.
He got it. Kenneth usually had the last laugh.
Did you have quite a happy home? I mean, your parents were quite...
Oh, yes.
Happy
Yes,
people?
we were. Yes, very. My mother would play the organ and we'd sing.
You had a pump organ in your house?
Well, yes, I think we had. I don't
never
know
knew
how
that.
come we came by that, but we did have.
I never knew Grammy played the
never
organ.
did. I never did either.
Mm-hmm.
No,
And
I didn't know that.
Tell me Grammy's name and...
Yeah, your parents-
All that
we didn't-
stuff.
we didn't tell you that. That was-
Well, she was born Maud. What's her middle name? Doesn't matter. Eva. Maud Eva Hill. They lived in Waterford, beyond where the radio station is, up in that area. And what was I starting to say?
what their names were and stuff.
That her, yeah, well, anyway, their grandparents lived with them too. And during that influenza or whatever, way back, it took her father and some of the others of the family too. So then my grandmother was left to bring up 2 girls. And I'm not sure about the brother, whether he was alive then or whether it happened before. But at a very early age, 18 or so, he was working in a mill and got caught in the saw. And it was a good-sized saw, and I guess that was it for him.
So your grandmother had kind of a tragic life. Your mother.
Yes.
Your mother.
Then, in later years, she did marry another man who was,
It was her husband that was killed by the saw?
Yes. No, that was her son.
Okay.
Her son, Homer, was
Okay.
killed by the saw. And then, I suppose she was living with the in-laws at this time, who was left. And later on, they died. And then she moved to St. Johnsbury, and she married Campbell. I'm trying to think of his first name.
William.
I guess it was William.
William.
Anyway, and they had a son anyway. And so I had a
Half brother.
uncle there. And I,
Oh, this is your,
That was Uncle Bill?
you're talking about your mother's,
talking about your grandmother,
Maud.
Maud.
Eva Hill.
Right.
Eva Hill.
Okay.
Then she married Campbell.
okay.
All right. And she had a stroke when she was, I don't believe she's 50.
Really?
And came and lived with my mother and dad the rest of her life. She probably was in her 50s or so.
So Grandpa's name is Carl.
On the other side of the family.
Yeah.
Your father.
Yeah, my dad, Carl Roy Ailes, was born in Kirby. He had one brother, Pearl. He, I think at first they lived with the grandparents, with the parents, my grandmother, and then he went to work different places before he got a farm, and the first one was in Kirby. Then that one in St. Johnsbury, and then we moved to North Danville.
So you would say he farmed in St. J?
Oh yes, he was farming there.
Okay.
Oh yes.
So how long did his brother Pearl live? I never remember anything about. Did he die? Or
He
long
died
before Grandpa?
He died before you was born, I'm quite sure. I think when we were first married, perhaps.
Which would have been in the 30s?
Yes.
Okay.
The other thing we wanted to talk about was the flood of 27 when you lived in North Danville still with your parents and going to high school.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you go to high school?
Well, before that, of course, I went to the old school in North Danville.
The same one that's there now?
And,
The same one that's there now?
oh no. The old school was at the head of the village. And there were 4 grades downstairs, 4 grades upstairs, and later they had high school up there, up over what they call the woodshed, I guess. Anyhow, I went to all that would be 10 grades there in North Danville, then went to Danville. And in order to get to Danville, why, in the fall and the spring, I rode or drove a horse to high school. Most of the time, I guess I drove. And then graduated from Phillips Academy, and right after that, they called it Danville High School.
When we looked up that, when you helped us, and I'll give you the other information we gleaned about that man
Yes,
who was in
right.
Glenn's class, Mitchell. It says in his commencement, a beautiful little commencement booklet, it called it Danville High School Phillips Academy. Danville High School, Phillips Academy, and Danville High School, and that was in 1927.
That was in 1927.
And that building wasn't even built then, was it? The new high school wasn't even built then.
I don't know.
I think it was like, 37 or 39 when Brainerd gave the money that they built the new high school. I'll check that out. But
Well, I know I graduated in 29, and it was just a short time after that they took on just Danville High School.
it was still in the building of the Phillips Academy,
Oh, yes.
wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense, okay.
They added on and changed the name.
So for a while, they kept it
Right,
both, and
both
then
of 'em.
they added on to the Phillips Academy building
Mhm.
and called it Danville High School. And then I do know that Brainerd gave all this money to the town.
Oh, yes.
He gave so much money that under the auspices or the Constitution or whatever, the incorporation of the Phillips Academy, they couldn't have that much money. And they built, I don't know if this is why, but they built the new brick high school. They didn't know what to do with the Phillips Academy. For years they left it standing behind the high school and finally tore it down. But you went to the beautiful Phillips Academy.
Well, the front of it was the same as this one.
Really? You
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
go to the one that looked like the town hall? You went to the brick one?
Oh, I can't remember that.
We'll figure that out.
Did you go to college?
But I graduated in 29, so probably that would tell you something.
Okay.
Somebody else has told you. Because I stayed out here with my grandmother, Ailes, in the wintertime, stayed 4 nights a week and then went home.
And she lived on Crystal Avenue,
Well, it's the
Hill
corner,
Street. Yeah.
corner of Crystal Avenue and Hill Street. And it went back, the barn went back toward Crystal Avenue and the house was on Hill Street section.
Before she gets to the college part, just tell them, and if Mary doesn't know about the
River?
the flood of 27.
Yeah.
Did you know there were 2 bridges from where she lived to North Danville that they had to go across that the flood took out? In
Part of the
27.
aqueduct went down here,
Mhm.
but that river went around here.
There were 2
And
bridges.
there were 2 bridges between your house and North Danville.
Right.
Oh, you know where, who is it lives down?
Right
Oh.
around me.
La Bounties.
The Bounty. Below there, you look as you're going down through. And at the end of the field here, there's a kind of a dugout
Yeah.
like, all right? It went right around here, and it took out the bridge here and the one down below. And you look and you can see where it came down below. And then the town, as I understood it, traded probably with George Drew
Mm-hmm.
to get the river go the other way. And they didn't put the bridges back, they just filled it in,
They changed the course of the river,
put it over back.
which had probably done quite a lot of changing during the flood anyway.
Oh, yes, yeah, right.
But I didn't know there were 2 bridges there. Did you know there were 2 bridges there now?
That's why I was questioning whether, I don't think it was a spring that that water could have come from.
I see.
I think it was from the river
Yeah.
here.
Because
Don't
it
you?
was a different course back
Mhm.
then.
Right.
And they could have taken half of it and swung it around behind
Right.
or some of it and swung it around behind the church.
And
Is it
you
water?
realize
Is it
that
water?
everything was done by hand then,
Oxen.
yes, and they probably would have made a road from that river that went around here,
Yeah.
connected it down.
Of course, everybody had 10 kids too.
Yeah, it's, I wanted to make sure that they knew about that.
Nice. Did you remember the flood of 27 and the bridges below the village? Because we've got some photos of that. It was pretty awful.
I don't remember too much about that. I remember going into St. Johnsbury and how bad it was. And of course you heard about it on the radio. And the
Actually, I think the flood that we have pictures of in the foot of North Danville might have been earlier than that.
I think-
Because the women are in very long dresses, and
I
in
think it was.
27 they wouldn't have been quite that decked out.
No, it had to be before.
Yeah. Could you, because I'm thinking of it, tell me about your grandmother never wearing short dresses.
Well, it wasn't my grandmother, it would be her grandmother.
Oh,
This
your
would-
mother.
Huh? No,
Your- oh,
no,
mi-
it would be Clarence's
Oh,
mother.
sorry.
Clarence's mother, who always wore
Sorry.
long dresses, and she had a hat and all that. Always.
And she died when?
Oh, goodness. Carol, when did Gramp die? You,
Same year, you
Graham
said.
died in 46,
They both died the same year, you said.
because I
They
was 4
couldn't
years
go to-
old.
They couldn't
I
go to
found
Florida
Graham
that
Do you
year.
remember?
Yes, I remember it very plainly. I walked out on the porch to go out and play in the snow, and he was dead on the, it was a pile of snow, because of the way the roof was made from the porch.
that's
and so on.
Rufus Hubbard we're
That's Rufus
talking
Hubbard,
about.
yeah, right. He was laying over the top of that mound of snow.
He had been out sweeping
He was sweeping the
the
porch.
snow off the porch floor. And he had a bad heart apparently. You didn't go to the doctors then, no matter what, so.
This
we
was your
didn't know
new
it.
house.
That was in the same house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one right here, right?
Yep.
Were
Yeah.
they living with you?
Yeah, they were there because they, as she said, they usually went south
To Florida.
in Florida in the winter. But because she was sick, they couldn't go. So he went out and he did it probably before that too, but I think that was in January, wasn't it?
I don't remember.
It
Carol
amazes
left it
me
down.
that in the 40s, late 40s, there were women who still did not shorten their skirts. I think that's incredibly impressive.
No, she didn't.
I don't remember much about her.
She's,
I don't remember, of course, they died before I
Well,
was
the
born.
reason you remember your Gramp dying is because it's such a shock.
It was such a shock.
Well, it's to
trauma.
see this man, what's he laying in the snow for? Get up, get out of the snow at 4 years old. You know?
Yeah.
Don't be so foolish to lay there. Until somebody said he probably had died.
No,
No, they just scooted me off quick down
Right.
to who was living in the hired man's house, so I would
Yeah.
be out of the way.
which was your house ultimately?
That was her house ultimately, but
So now
Yeah.
I've
Libby's.
changed you from your course.
Well,
We were talking about
I
the
was just trying to get
Aileses,
stuff.
It's all.
but I'm kind of interested in the Aileses as a musical family too, and kitchen junkets at some point.
well, let me see, what did we,
You started with Grandpa, you need to finish Grandpa's
with
birthday.
Carl Ailes. I think I was talking about
Yeah.
Carl, my dad, little brother Pearlie.
Right.
He did farming, of course, and the last place they moved onto a farm was down to Morse's Mills. Those buildings that are falling down there now.
Oh, on the left, that beautiful huge barn.
Yep, it was perfectly fine then. And during the winter, my grandmother, that would be Carl Ailes's mother, was taken sick with pneumonia. So they moved up to Danville on Hill Street, and Dad moved his cows up, and he used to milk down in back of Vetz's house.
Really?
Across the street from where Linda lives.
They had a little shed down there, and I think he kept his cows down there, I know he did, and during the summer, and he'd go down there and milk night and morning.
Isn't that interesting that people did go to their back farms
Mm-hmm.
or their out of the village farm like Johnny
Right.
did? Because
Yep.
because milk was becoming increasingly economically viable way to make
Yeah.
money. So
Oh,
you
yes,
increase
right.
the number of your cows.
Well, I know, I've heard some of the men tell about going down there, and Dad was quite a joker, so they loved to go down and spend some time with him when he was milking down there. And that one year, Mother had cleaned all her windows and
You're talking about your mom and dad now,
now
or your grandparents.
Now, my dad built down there.
Okay.
All right. And then my grandmother died with a pneumonia. And so they still stayed there with Grandpa. And my grandmother Campbell was there with them too. Then the fire of 44 came, 1944.
Which actually was started at the Hartshorns, even though Thelma wouldn't admit it.
No, she never would.
We can say it now, can't we?
But anyway, they knew about the fire, and they watched the buildings, and Homer went out and see the roof of the barn was on fire. So he got the hose, was going to try and stop it, and no water. All the water was being used at the other end of the village. So they just had to get out and let it go. And they had quite a hard time getting one of the older folks out. Probably it was Grandpa, who didn't want to leave this place. And then his mother said, it's an awful feeling when you don't even have a toothbrush or a comb to your name. They worked so hard to get them out, they couldn't save anything, you know.
They did say that working too.
So that was in 44, and then they moved from there anyway, and went different places. We've tried to figure out which place they went first. When Glenn was here the other day, you know, we were trying to figure it out. I guess we talked about it after you left.
Well, so was it your
But
grandparents?
my grandfather and my grandmother went with them, and they lived after that on Dole Hill.
Yes, I've got the picture. I'll get pictures of it for you.
On Dole Hill, and then they moved back onto Hill Street, where Smith's are now.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. And it was at that time that they were, I think Dad was still milking down there then, or came back and did it anyway. Down to Vance's, you know. But they lived there quite a little while. And Homer went to high school for school and high school up to Danville. And
So
then,
your parents were living in North Danville. Your grandparents are living out here. Your grandparents' house burned. Your grandparents moved to Hill Street from Morse's Mills.
yeah, they
Her parents moved from Morse's
Okay.
Mills to Hill Street to take care of the...
Okay.
they moved from Moses
I
Mills
see.
to Hill
Your
Street.
parents moved from North Danville to Morse's
Morse's
Mills to Hill Street.
Right.
Okay.
Then I think it's after the fire that they moved 2 or 3 places that I know they moved on. What you call it there?
Dole
On,
Hill, you said.
Dole Hill, and then they moved on to Hill Street, and that's what Glenn was talking about, because he used to go there and see Dad a lot then.
Yeah, I used to go, I can remember going with Grandpa down to milk his 2 cows.
You can?
Walk down the hill to
Yeah.
where, over across the street from where Linda is.
Down
No,
to
Glen's
Vance's,
house
and
is
he
there.
had 2.
Had 2 cows at that time.
And was the barn like where Vance's barn is, or was it the other side of the river?
Linda's house is on this side, it was on the other side.
Where Eleanor Vance's is?
Just at the back of the house there by the brook.
It
Yeah.
was just a little
shed,
shanty
Mhm.
like they used.
And that's when George Ailes was living with them, which is your grandfather.
Right.
He lived with them, and he was 92 before he passed away.
Now, I tried to think if they were living there when they died. They lived there with them.
But you said Grammy died, would have been Grammy Ailes, would have died of pneumonia. That's why you moved there to take care of him, right? Your parents moved there to take care of, and
She died.
she died of pneumonia, but you still had George Ailes, your grandfather, still living with them,
And Grammy Campbell,
and which was Grammy Campbell, which would have been
her mother.
her mother.
So we're
Then,
not
How
surprised
old was Shay?
longevity.
So how old was Amy Campbell?
She wasn't as old as Grandpa when she died, but I can't tell you how old she was, no.
So the other woman was young then.
Yeah, she
Younger.
was a little
Michael,
younger.
you may not have longevity, but Gloria does.
See, Grandpa George's Ailes' body is in Danville, in the
Dammer Green Cemetery?
yes.
And so is Belle, his wife, of course.
And George died at the end of my being sick when I was 11, 12, when I had rheumatic fever. Because I remember
Yeah,
they're coming
right.
back to the house, coming back to the house in North Danville.
After
And
the
afterwards,
service.
and I had a bird at the time, and the bird was loose in the house, and it was on the top of a lamp.
Perch.
Lamp where I was laying in the living room, and somebody left the door open because it was hot, and the cat came in and caught my bird. So, and I remember.
Now that fire was in 44, and this was after that. You were born in 42.
No, this was in the 50s. When I was sick and I was low. And I had
It
my
was-
fever.
Yeah, and you remembered him well. You remembered your grandfather well.
No, I don't remember
It'd be
seeing
her grandfather. It'd
Oh,
be
her
his-
grandfather.
It'd be her grandfather
That you
would-
remember.
Well,
I
I
don't
don't were
remember.
telling about him, that's why we were talking, it was her.
Who did you go
grandpa.
milking with?
my grandfather,
My
her
grandfather.
father.
Okay.
And
So he must have died when they were in Danville at some point. And you're talking about Grandpa Ailes dying when you
No,
were...
I was talking about Georgia,
George Ailes dying when
George.
you were...
when I was, some,
No.
Yeah, that-
That's- you
she's-
got your years mixed up.
no, I don't have the years. It wasn't Grandpa Hills, I know it wasn't.
Right, because they died in, when I was 10,
59.
9 and 10.
Grandpa Ailes and Grammy Campbell.
No, Maud and Carl.
Oh, Mom Cow.
Her.
Well, she's
She died
talking
in
about
59.
Grandpa
She-
Ailes.
I
That's
know,
George.
but I didn't think he could have been that old. He could have been that still alive when she was
Oh,
coming out of rheumatic fever, because I don't remember him at all.
Well, you weren't very big at that point.
Well, no, but I would have been 6 or more. If you were 12,
I was 11, 12 years old.
But you don't have to remember. I mean,
no.
people have,
right. But what I'm saying, I was trying to figure out if he
Well,
had
since
to look and see on this grave
You're right.
when
Yeah.
he died.
yeah.
What year he died. So go ahead, go on to, well, I'm just trying to get that in,
Yeah.
the longevity part that
Yeah.
there. So when did you meet Dad?
Whoa.
Let's go back, but we haven't got
Okay.
to college yet.
Okay.
Okay.
Did you go to college?
Yes, I went to Linden State for 2 years. And at that time, we would go over Monday morning and stay in Sandman House, which is a dormitory.
Still there.
And we went to LI for our classes. We did that for 2 years and graduated.
Was it Linden Normal School then?
Uh-huh, right,
Only for teachers?
right. Well, women didn't have many things they could get into except being a homemaker or a business. You could go into
Or a nurse?
yes, or a nurse. Yeah, right.
So you were rather progressive to go to college. Your
Yeah,
parents
right.
valued education?
Oh, yes, right. Yeah.
But you were valedictorian of your senior year or college?
No, high school.
High school. You were valedictorian of her classes.
When we went back, when I rode back and forth with a horse there, I learned my vocabulary as well I was going.
In her foreign languages? You
Well,
took Latin?
I took Latin and of course English. You had to
Sure.
learn some things, but Latin especially. I think I took French too. And one of my classmates wouldn't have much to do with me after we left North Danville. That was Marion Noyce,
Herb Noyce's sister, maybe?
daughter,
Oh,
the oldest one. Well, come on. And she wouldn't speak to me hardly any out to school when we were going to Danville School, and I couldn't understand why. Later, I found out from the lady with whom she stayed, which was Lina Sykes, that the reason she was so disgusted with me was because I could answer all the questions in class, got a long grade in school, and she had to work till midnight to even get passing grades.
jealousy. She was gelling them. Did you notice your mother said,